Hello and welcome back to the On the Slab Horror Show, the show that we bring to you each and every Friday night. Tombstone Ted, why do we bring it on a Friday night?
Because Friday night's horror night.
For all us nostalgic folk, Friday night was the night that they used to play old school horrors on the TV in the early 90s and 2000s in Ireland. As you can see, we don't have my left and right hand man Ian, the Dynamo Kelly and Carl Kingwood this evening. Pesky work has come and stolen them again. So we go back to an old friend in Tombstone. Ted, how are you?
Oh, I'm not too bad. You talked about nostalgia there. I don't think our guest has ever seen the early 90s, have you?
No, 1998. It's not exactly early.
No, and as you can see, we are joined by a guest here tonight who is a rising star in the world of horror and a future scream queen, no doubt, and star of two upcoming movies this year in late checkout, and one that I'm personally looking forward to because I'm a huge fan of the original one that, and I didn't even know this was a thing up until a couple of weeks ago in the Mutilator 2. This is Anna Clary. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for making the time to come on. I'm sure you're very busy.
Moderately. I crammed in an audition before going to my just day job, which I'm very grateful and super flexible with me being like, hey, I'm leaving for 3 weeks. Bye. I like to make it work.
Most jobs don't do that. Just before we get into it this evening, this show is in fact brought to you by Fright Rags Horror Apparel. So it is www.fright-rags.com. The single best horror merch on the planet. There's unbelievable lines at the minute from Fright Rags. As you can see, I have my Halloween Kills one on. Ted's Space Jam one is not from Fright Rags.
No, but Space Jam's the greatest film ever made. Just so everyone knows. I know it's a horror podcast, but that is the true facts of the world. But Space Jam is the greatest film ever made.
And then just on a special given note, it will be the last week of our promo code. So it's OTS Horror 10 for an all 10% discount when you're checking out. So that's www.fright-rags.com and then OTS Horror 10. So as Ian says, that's the housekeeping done. So let's get down to business. Anna, what would you like to tell us about yourself?
I think the best thing to sum it up is my life motto is Kick Life Sass. And that's purely because I'm kind of in an industry where, you have to really face a lot of rejection. Literally last week, I got like the email saying, oh, it was down to the last couple people, but not you, which is cool. I actually am a huge fan of the person that did get it. But it's definitely an industry where you gotta definitely be ready to be broken down because you'll look forward to something, you'll be excited about a potential role and you won't get it. So if you don't have thick enough skin and enough resilience and confidence in yourself and your own work, you really that's what you need to make it. Obviously, there's and you kind of have to learn to accept the fact that, it's not you not being talented. It's just either, circumstantial or someone else was just a better fit for the role. I've met so many people that I know don't really do it anymore because they were like, oh, I kept not getting stuff and, I don't think I'm good enough. And I think that's where people's breaking point comes in, being kind of letting not getting something get you in the mindset of, oh, well, I just don't have enough talent. Whereas it's not so much people not having talent. It's a very competitive industry. There's so much talent. Doesn't mean that you don't have any. It just means, this wasn't your time to shine. And, my sort of first like big role was right in the middle of COVID, and so it really hindered stuff because production kept getting turned off, turned on. So it definitely like impacted things a lot. But it was a really great experience because it was, you know, the first like huge project I'd worked on where, you know, I'd had a lead and, you know, really got to delve into it.
Was that Bitches Meet the NWO?
Yes. So that was my like first like big thing. It's called Murder Bitches, Meet the New World Order, and then Have Sex at the End, probably. Super long title. It was originally what was it? Originally it was going to be called God, it's been like 2 years. It originally had like it was like something Hammer of the Gods is what it was originally going to be called.
How do you change from Hammer of the Gods to that? I mean, it's a good change.
For starters, I think it kind of sort of leaned towards, because Hammer of the Gods, it's a very like abstract movie. You can find it on YouTube. There's definitely, I'm pretty sure some stuff ended up getting cut just because we couldn't film it, because we filmed it on and off over the span of a year just because of, you know, everything just went to hell in a handbasket. But I think it got changed partially because the two lead characters, which is me and another very lovely actress named Elsie Wang, and they played the two leads, Alex and Brooke. And the reason it changed titles, I mean, obviously they kill people, so hence Murder Bitches. But the whole entire premise is they go on this kind of like hunt almost for just corrupt people and politicians and all the people they're affiliated with, and they're journalists, and so that's how they end up, you know, tracking these people down, trying to end just something that's corrupting society and everything like that. And I mean, it was a really interesting story. It's definitely something where you have to watch it more than once, or at least read the script more than once before you really like put certain pieces together, just because it's a lot of it is kind of metaphorical. But yeah, the whole Meet the New World Order is, you know, them saying we're resetting the world kind of thing. But they added on the and then have sex at the end, probably because in the original script, you know, the two characters, there is no final, there's no like kiss, there's no like real
connection,
intimacy or whatever. Can you hear me still?
Yeah, we can still hear you. Yeah, there's no intimacy in the end of the original.
Okay.
Oh, I think we've gone now.
Okay. Just want to check.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
Okay. And so it kind of evolved, or not so much evolved, but we were really grateful. The director like kind of let us, you know, give our feedback on where we think these two characters should end up in the process of it. And so you spend the whole time, there's like this very obvious, I wouldn't say sexual tension between the two, but there's a flirtation. It starts with my character, Brooke, who is kind of like, almost kind of pushing Alex's buttons, like just saying stuff that's just subtle, hinting at it. And it ends up moving from like a very much like, they're not interested in each other, it's just someone messing with someone, to as they move through their journey and as they're like killing all these people, they've kind of become very protective over each other. And the characters evolve into, I wouldn't say they end up in a relationship at all, which I guess some people probably would differ, because there is a very intimate scene between the two of them at one point. But I don't think they actually really end up into a relationship. I think it's sort of just a mutual attraction. But I would say it kind of leaves the audience up in the air. Like, is this a thing? Is it not a thing? Which I very much like.
I mean, horror film. I mean, horror films these days.
Side of them having.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
You broke off for a second.
I was saying horror films these days focus too much on that. People get thrown into a relationship at the end of every movie, and like they're doing madly in love after like a day, and you're like, no, I'm not sure that's how that goes.
Yeah, never. That's not how it goes. I think the only reason it would even happen is if you're like, oh, we're about to die, so one last hurrah kind of thing. But it's always after the everyone's like, oh, the final survivors, and then they get together, which I think doesn't make sense at all most times. And that's actually kind of the motive for the director. He didn't want to like give the audience that whole like, we're going to put them together and make you happy just because that's what everyone wants. So I really liked how it was like, there's kind of something, but it could just be just them exploring, because you find out kind of that Alex's character is straight. Brooke, it's kind of up in the air. So it's kind of just more of an exploration in the characters, which I think is something that is really unique to it, and not just giving the audience straight up the love story they want at the end, and focusing more on the movie itself. And kind of like the intimacy isn't the pinnacle of the like vulnerability in that movie. Actually, Brooke, the entire movie, all of her hair is up in a beanie, so you don't see her hair at all. Very like masculine character, or not so much masculine, just like she doesn't want to soften her appearance. She kind of has this wall up around her. And so the most vulnerable bits aren't so much the intimate scenes, but there's a couple scenes later in the movie where she actually takes the beanie off when they're alone together. You actually see her hair, and that she's a little more vulnerable than she lets on in the rest of the movie, which is something that I thought was a really cool attribute to give to the character on the creator's part.
It's a very subtle way of building that intimate sort of relationship, rather than a very in your face. Like you kind of have to think about that a little bit before it sinks in that that's what's happening.
The director actually made me laugh a lot, because he because it's supposed to like kind of make her like not look as like feminine flattering as a lot of female leads in horror are. And it's more of a like thriller, I would say, personally, than straight up horror, but there's definitely a horror aspect. But he would always crack me up, because he'd be like, the point of like, taking the hair away and like really not doing like a bunch of makeup or anything was to kind of like make her look harder and not like as like typically attractive. And he would always tease me and be like, you're making it look too pretty. But it definitely, like, when I watched the footage back and I got the copy of the movie, it definitely did its job. Because when the hair finally does come down, really, like at that point she's also in, and it's still like the undergarments are still super tomboyish, like boy short white underwear, and like wife beater, like that kind of stuff. Like the attire, even in its like less like covering, skimpy, whatever, is still like true to the character's nature. But the hair coming down is what is really the like complete like character change, like dynamic change between them. And there's a really cool scene where the other character, who I would say half the time is left with the aggressor, and Elsie played Alex very well in that she kind of like was more hesitant towards the beginning, and then really came into her own and her own strength at the end. And the other character is kind of following the lead for a part of it, and then she ends up sort of transitioning into like total badass, really. But there's a really cool scene, which was super fun for us to shoot, where she is like trailing a knife around the other character's neck and all that. And it's just a really interesting power shift between the two of them. Because I think that, in my opinion, by the end of the movie, Brooke is definitely not in charge in the slightest anymore. And I think it was done very subtly. You see throughout the script the power change, and the other actress like showed it so well. Because Brooke's attitude throughout the whole thing, and at least how I interpreted it and played it, her attitude level is kind of the same throughout it, except for some random moments of vulnerability, which is like very private between them. But like you see a real like personality, like attitude portrayal change in the other character. It's made so much more prominent by the fact that Brooke's character kind of remains the same while the power dynamic still shifts.
Yeah, it's happening quite regularly in movies now, where you'll see someone. It's nearly like the Terminator effect, what they done with Sarah Connor, where they had her kind of being just there and terrified to turn it into this legit badass by the end of it. Aside like the same they done with Ripley in Alien.
I'm actually obsessed with the Alien movies. I just recently was having a conversation about one of them, and some people were talking about you know how there's the hybrid alien in which one is it?
3.
I think it's 3. They bring in the hybrid, isn't it?
I think it's 3. I think so. Either way, the hybrid. I was having a conversation with someone, and people were like, "Oh, I hated the effects on the hybrid," and I was like, "Effects aside, what they did with the hybrid, I thought was absolutely astounding, just character-wise, because yeah, they've created this new monster, but they add this kind of like need and vulnerability to it, even though it's killed people. Like, you know, it's kind of created as like a lost duckling looking for its mother almost. So I think that like the way they made the hybrid almost like almost like a very sad character, I thought was a really cool dynamic, because they created a level of pain in a monster, which I think is, you know, something that I think really makes some horror movies so much greater than others. Because when you see like the suffering and pain behind the monster, I think it's very reflective of real life and human nature. And so I think that, like, effects aside, just adding that level of torment to a character you're not supposed to like is really cool.
I think that leads very well into one of the films you have coming up. Obviously, the original shot back in 1984 in Mutilator. It's very similar to that it's a father-son, and yeah, spoiler warnings for anyone who hasn't watched a film from 1984. But, you know, the son accidentally shoots his mother, and the father can never forgive him. You know, and yeah, you can see why the dad goes off the deep end. Now I wouldn't say anyone sympathizes with him when he goes killing a lot of you know, people that have gone up to this house, but you know, you can understand where his like the snap in his logic has come from, and it makes it a better horror film because of that. Yeah,
when you I wouldn't say empathize, but that kind of is the right word, because you obviously don't empathize with someone going on a slaughter spree. But when you can have that like empathetic connection with the point of aggression in a movie, I think it makes it hit so much closer to home. I have a theater background, actually. So I started with like musicals and plays and all of that. And two of my favorite musical is actually Phantom of the Opera. And it's because you really empathize with this character who's doing so much wrong, but there's so much pain and torment and suffering behind it that you can't help but feel an emotional connection to the quote unquote bad guy. I think that is where you really take your audience to a deeper level, outside of like obviously horror movies are some of my favorites, but in the play world, like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is another one.
That's
where
phenomenal movie as well.
You have I across the board phenomenal, and you have some characters that are clearly unhinged, and not necessarily morally right, not necessarily morally wrong, but that's what makes an audience connect, is the relatability of, you know, that gray area, because much as many people would like to believe that there really is no black and white, and we're all just kind of living in a gray area, a consistent one. But, and when you really test that boundary, it connects the audience more.
I've got a question there, right? You're talking about morally right and morally wrong. What would you say Leatherface was? Like the original, the 1974. Was he right or was he wrong? Seeing as he didn't know really what he's doing.
So I would say, like I said, there's really no correct answer between that. It's definitely still a gray area, but my opinion on it would be, unfortunately, human nature is typically shaped by the environment that we grow up in. I mean, scientifically, your brain literally is formed in the beginning of like your life gradually, and the influence of environment and other people or creatures around you is going to shape how you turn out. Obviously, there are some things that are out of control. Like some people are just born with something different, like chemical imbalance or whatever. But when it comes down to it, environment plays such a huge factor in how we grow up. So my answer to that would be, I mean, I think it's great because there is this level of, you can actually kind of empathize with this character that's doing so many terrible things.
I don't think he knows what he's doing wrong.
Shaped by his environment. I agree with that. I think he was raised in an environment where what's right is what other people think is wrong, and I don't think it's a matter of, you know, obviously the actions are terrible, but I don't think that the character has any sense of awareness of what society deems as right or wrong. His version of what society deems as right or wrong are confined to a very small environment, and because he's confined to a very small environment, that whole environment is all that's going to shape his life and his mindset and, you know, his growth throughout his life. And since it started from childhood, it's so ingrained that there's no way that he has any idea that what he's doing is quote unquote wrong. It's been instilled in him so deeply that he believes in his own actions. And I think obviously so many people probably wouldn't have any empathy for that sort of character. But the fact that, you know, he's just as trapped as his victims are, I think there's something that people can empathize in if they, really think it over. Because he's just as stuck in that environment as they are.
Yeah, sorry, that was just a question off the bat when you said about morality. I was like, yeah, because especially because one of our co-hosts, Carl, it's his favorite horror movie, so he'd appreciate that in there. But we'll go back.
I like the ambiguity.
Yeah, we'll go back to the mutilator too. What was it like on set, especially for a movie that has such a cult following? That this movie came out of the blue. Really, well, it might be bigger over in the States, but it came out of the blue, and it wasn't until I seen one of your co-hosts put it up, or one of your co-stars put it up on Instagram when Eva Hamilton put it up. She put something up, and I was like, no, they can't be making a sequel, whatever, 40 years later. And she was like, yeah, no, it's happening. And I was like, well, I'm all in here.
I honestly, being such a huge fan of horror, I actually up until I got casted in this, I actually hadn't seen the original. Obviously, as soon as I became a part of it, I went and watched it immediately. But I think I'm super glad that they did the sequel so much later on, because two of the cool aspects of it, and this is my favorite part actually, is they bring back two of the original actors, which I'm not sure what details I can share, so I'm just going to leave it at that. And
yeah.
I think having that in such a time jump is really cool. But the coolest part of the time jump for the second one is that it's its own movie almost, because I love the Scream franchise, absolutely adore it.
How could you not?
I think part of slashers that I like the most is because there's so many people that will say slashers are the characters suck, they're usually assholes, and I'm like, the greatest part of a slasher to me is that you love to hate some of the characters. It makes you so much more involved, because there's those characters that are so pure, you always have the cliche pure, the cliche jock, the cliche princess, whatever. So you love to hate some of them, and then you're so invested in some of the other ones living, and then you have those middle grounds. But my favorite part of a good slasher is the character that you hate, and if you are rooting for the killer at any point, I think you've done a slasher good.
Oh yeah.
I think if you're ever rooting for all the characters to live, then that's a failure on my part in the slasher.
Do you know?
Yeah, back to.
Go ahead.
Back to Mutilator 2. I think that the fact that it's kind of its own, you could never see the first one, and it could be its own standalone movie. Something that's really unique, because a lot of horror sequels don't do that, and I think the time between the two really facilitates that. And it just created its own unique feel, separate from the first one, while staying true to the roots, which I really appreciate.
I mean, it's the same director, isn't it? It's Buddy Cooper come back.
Yeah, and then another integral part of it was Anne Hale was really integral, and Jeff Seaman, he's amazing. At one point, me and a couple of the other actors, we had a scene together, and we had a vision for keeping the lines but sort of changing some of the actions, and it was really great because they really listened to us. We presented it to Buddy, and they were like, "This is great," and they really were great about sticking true to the script while also listening to us when we were like, "Hey, I have this idea," and they were just all huge pleasure to work with. And especially since, Buddy is well known. And
Very.
he treated us all like equals, which was, you never know. I've definitely been on sets where, some people just, don't look at cast and crew as all equals. And that's kind of definitely my least favorite thing about certain sets is, people not realizing we're all on the same team, no matter what your role is, whether you're the lead, you're supporting, an extra, your crew, directing, everyone is equally important, because without certain people, the whole thing falls apart. And in fact, that was the best part of that set. And also the late checkout set. Everyone was super supportive of one another, respectful. Terry he's obviously a huge name. And after the scene we shot together, he came up, shook my hand, said thank you for working with me. Just, treated me like an equal, which is, especially as someone that's more up and coming than a lot of the people I've been working with. It just makes it a lot better.
I mean, it doesn't cost anything to be nice to people. You don't need to go and be a dick to every random person because you think you're better than everybody else.
Yeah.
Like the prime example of that, like look at Keanu Reeves, how nice he is to people on set. Do you know what I mean?
And then his opposite, Christian Bale.
Yeah. Yeah.
It definitely, I think people don't realize, word of mouth, especially in this industry, is a powerful thing. And, treating someone with kindness and respect goes a long way, because if you're not pleasant to work with, you never know who is going to pass that along to somebody else. You don't know who anyone's connected with. It's an industry that's honestly purely based on connections for a lot of people, unless you're, I don't know, Chris Hemsworth or something, in which case maybe not. But it's very based on connections. I actually had the pleasure of joining Late Checkout sort of last minute, just because there was an issue in someone's personal life. They had to pull out, and just based on connections for the most part, and also just, you can access materials based on other people. You can see who's done what. But connections played a huge part in me getting to join that production, which was honestly like just the most wonderful environment to be in.
You obviously had a scream queen from the 80s in Felicia Rose there as well.
She was leaving as I arrived.
Oh, she was finished when you came in, was she?
And, we didn't get to work together specifically, which hopefully someday. But despite me having just arrived, she came up and she was like, nice to meet you, and introduced herself as she was leaving. And she still took the time because she knew I was joining the project super last minute. She took, and so was Brandon was joining the project last minute as well. She took the time to say hi to both of us, say thank you for coming to the project, which was, super great, because obviously she is queen, minus the scream, just queen alone. She's so prominent, especially for people that love horror I do. Her taking the time to just say hi when she didn't have to, meant a lot to me. Obviously, in the moment I was composed, but on the inside I was literally shrieking. But yeah, it's been a really cool industry, and my family has definitely teased me a little, being like, oh, so are you only doing horror now? And I was like, you know what? I would not be mad about only doing horror. It's my favorite genre. Obviously, I've told you I like comedy a lot as well. Good balance, good healthy balance there, and what I enjoy. But more often than not, like if I can't fall asleep at night, ironically, I fall asleep to horror movies. Like I'll just put something I've already seen on that's a horror movie, and for some reason I find it soothing.
See,
But
I run that issue. If I put something on, I'm gonna finish it.
I like it depends. Like if it's something I haven't seen, I'm not going to sleep. But I'll rewatch Scream all the time. Because I'll just close my eyes and I'll listen to the dialogue because I can picture it in my head. So it's kind of like dreaming, but dreaming something I've seen. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's I just have been lucky, but for the most part, horror sets have been the best sets that I've been on. One, just getting to see the special effects unfold is so cool. It's incredible behind the scenes. I hope I'm pronouncing his last name right, but Derek Worley, he did the effects for Late Checkout, and I was beyond blown away by his work. I can't go into details because I can't spoil stuff, but seeing what he's pulled off in the final product, it alone is going to be worth watching the movie. I mean, and then you add in the incredible talent that was on that set and incredible script, and just it's mind blowing. Josh is so creative, and he and Molly wrote the script together. I know it's Josh Graves. I feel so horrible. I can't remember.
Molly Sousa.
Yes.
Sousa.
I'm not sure if it's pronounced that way, but they wrote it together. And I actually was talking with her because I was brought in super last minute for Late Checkout. I was memorizing my scenes right before doing them because I got on set the night before I had to start, and I got in at like 12:30 at night. So it's definitely probably the most intense shoot I've had, just because, you know, I just had to absorb the material and do it right away. But there was some dialogue that my character had, and I was like, this is amazing. It's super empowering. And I was telling her, like, I love some of these lines. And she was saying she wrote a lot of my character's lines. So it was really cool to, like, you know, get to, like, know who, like, built Ava, and, you know, actually be able to talk to the person that envisioned the character. But yeah, the writing the two of them did on that script, I can't wait for people to see it. And I mean everything like that.
I'm very intrigued to see. Obviously, with the love that I have for New Letter One, obviously that'll be higher up in the priority list. But I'm very intrigued to see the way you're talking about Late Checkout, and especially with some of the cast that's gone into it.
It's going to be incredible. I don't have to see. I've seen little clips of footage when I was on the set, but it's going to be absolutely phenomenal. I mean, they're both going to be phenomenal. Obviously, Mutilator 2 is probably going to draw in more, you know, viewers, just because it is such a. Me too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's already got its name out there. You know, it's got an original to it, so that's already got a selling point.
It's such a cult classic. I mean, it's actually been kind of cool. So I work at a lovely brewery when I'm not acting, and where I work, I've actually had some people, because I only have like two hats, one of them being the Mutilator 2 hat. And it's also now my favorite hat, so I wear it all the time. I've actually had some people come in and do. At one point, I had my hat just sitting on the shelf behind the bar, and someone was asking one of the other bartenders, "Oh, whose hat is that? Where did they get it?" And they didn't know there was going to be a sequel, and they were like, "Where'd you get that hat? And is that supposed to be a 2? Is there a sequel?" And I was like, "Yeah, there's a sequel." And this man got so excited. It made me really happy just to like actually meet someone that's a huge fan of the original, because I'm obviously a more recent fan. But I've met a couple people that have come in and didn't know about the sequel, but are huge fans of the original, and it's been really cool to like actually get to see how much love there is for the original and how much excitement there is like in person for the sequel.
Like that.
And actually, if you are
Sorry.
If you're a fan, so this T-shirt is from the original mock-up. The Mutilator was originally going to be called Fall Break. So this is one of the original T-shirt designs.
Oh,
it's unreal. Yeah, see, I had a copy of it on DVD that I got sent over from America, but I could never use it over here.
The region.
Because the region on it. And when it arrived, it came under the name Fall Break. And I was like, what the hell is this? Yeah, I was like, what the hell is this? This isn't what I wanted. Turns out it was, but I never got to use it.
I have to say that T-shirt is
savage.
Is amazing looking, and I was actually saying it to Greg before you came on. The Mutilator, I actually love, even though it's so simple, the hook turning into a 2. I actually think that's one of my favorite things about it already. But I haven't seen it. I love when you can take something very small like that and make it so prominent. I just love it.
I actually. Buddy was the one that let me keep this shirt. I used it for a scene, and I was so enamored. I was so excited about it. And I kept talking to the customers, like, there's a chance, because you don't get to keep costuming. And she went up like, hey, is there any chance some of the actors can keep some of the shirts? And he said yes. And I swear to God, I wear it like once a week because I'm just so excited because pretty much no one has this, or at least that I know of. And my favorite part is at the bottom of the shirt. It's this part where the guy is getting his head impaled makes me really happy.
It's
probably not the thing that should make you happy, but
like I'm a huge fan.
Honestly, the fact that it's an honor.
Yeah, like myself and Ted there would be a huge fan of, and obviously Ian and Carl as well would be huge fans of horror merch. Obviously, getting sponsored by Fright Rags was huge for us, and obviously all the gear that we have is all Fright Rags. But like that looks unreal in terms of picking it off a movie set.
Yeah, I have to say the directors and stuff should be very happy that they've got you in their cast, because if you said you're wearing that Mutilator 2 hat pretty much like constantly now, and then you've got that T-shirt, like
free publicity
the entire time.
I'm going to be a walking ad for sure.
Yeah, I think they'd be foolish not to release. Unfortunately, it'd be bad for you because you've got the T-shirt now and it's a difficult one to get. I think they'd be foolish not to release that T-shirt now. And I would be surprised once the film goes live that they don't release it, because it's brilliant looking, and I think it'd be a big seller.
And I mean, if you can get us some merch and send it over.
I possibly could. I know they're selling Mutilator 2 stuff. I don't think I could get this awesomeness, unfortunately. Just because they only had a limited amount just for us to wear for the scene.
Can I have that one?
Definitely, if I can get over my dead body, literally. when I perish, I might need to be buried in it.
Yeah, it's brilliant. So they're actually selling Mutilator stuff here already.
I know that they were. I saw advertisement for some stuff. I don't know if it was short term or not. But definitely, if I will do some research and I'll reach out and I'll see where they are, or if they are where they are, and definitely send you a link over so you can get some of it. And I can reach out possibly to the producer and see if they are gonna do any more of the fall break shirts or anything like that.
That'd be swell.
But I'm still beyond excited that I even was allowed to keep the shirt because it was such a long shot. Like, you know, a lot of the costuming is, you know, not given away. It's kept. And I like to take stuff from set. So like the first, like the murder bitches. I can't remember if I got permission to do this or not, but I have the knife that my character used the whole time, and it's a real knife. Like it's an actual. I just realized I keep it in my bag at all times. I carry it around with me.
No.
So this is the knife that I used in the movie. It's just a like nice little pocket knife. And so my character flips the knife open a lot, but this one doesn't flip open, like it locks in place. And the director let me pick. He laid out a bunch of knives and was like, which one do you want to use? And I picked this one. He was like, you know, you just picked the only one that doesn't flip open and shut easily. So I would have to cheat it. I would have to cheat it like partially. So I could like flip it. I would have to like cheat it like lightly unlocked. Because otherwise I couldn't flip it open when I had to.
That's awesome.
So that's the first thing I got. And then I think I might have stolen it. Hopefully, I don't think he'd get mad.
That's plausible deniability.
Yeah, as soon as I picked, I mean, he could have given me permission. There's no proof. But yeah, as soon as I picked it out, and my character literally, I'm either holding it or it's in my pocket. Like I have the knife on me pretty much the whole movie. But as soon as like we got into it, I was like, yeah, I'm keeping this some way or another. And I actually think I did earn it because at one point we were shooting a scene and I sliced, because it's a real knife, so I sliced my finger a little bit. And I was like, you know what? I've bled for this knife. It's mine now. And then obviously I knew I was going to get the mutilator hat, so because everyone got one. And then Anne was super awesome, and she had custom mutilator sunglasses for everyone, which are the ones I keep in my car now because
that you don't like.
Who needs regular sunglasses when they can? Yeah. And I literally wear them every time I drive pretty much. But yeah, having like, because the knife is a unique thing. This was super unique for me to have. And then for late checkout, my like unique souvenir, I have a pair of the shorts that I used, which is random, but you know, I was like, this is unique. I'm gonna frame these shorts. And then I also got everyone that was on set at the time, cast, crew, and everyone I could possibly get to sign a page of my script, which I have framed in my house now. I wish I'd thought of doing that for Mutilator, but I didn't, unfortunately. But yeah, I like to keep a little piece of all like my favorite bigger acting things.
The Mutilator, like with the following that it has, could end up being huge for you.
This is gonna sound kind of weird. I don't so much care per se of. Obviously, like acting is the love of my life, especially horror. But I don't so much care about like, you know, making it big or whatever. So long as I get to spend the rest of my life doing something that I'm so passionate about, that's really all I can ask for. Not that any actor or actress would ever be mad if they like made it in Hollywood or whatever.
Oh no, I made an A-list horror.
I mean, that truly is the dream, but as long as I get to do this for a living, that's really all I can ask for in life. everything else is kind of redundant to me in comparison. And if I can't do it for a living, like only do this for a living, because obviously right now I still have, everyone has bills to pay. It's a side effect of life, as I say. But I at least want to be doing some level of acting at all times. You know, maybe if I'm not able to do it as my only job, I'm never gonna not do it in some capacity. And I always tell people, you know, even if acting isn't your thing, being on a set and seeing how things come together is truly such a unique and incredible experience. And anyone can be an extra. I think that, you know, I think everyone should be an extra once in their life just to like have an understanding
Nope.
Of how things get put together and the like intense amount of work that goes into it. So I've definitely had a couple people, you know, be like, "Oh, you were filming for 3 weeks. It was probably like a vacation, right?" And it's like being up until 5:30 in the morning in the freezing cold isn't necessarily what I would say is a vacation. I mean, to me it was, because that's what I love to do. I would rather be on acting on a set and working my butt off than take the most luxurious vacation to the like Maldives or something like that. But I definitely think people really underestimate, especially like when it comes to crew, the amount of work that everyone puts into to make a movie happen, especially when it's a lower budget, is completely intense. And I think, you know, a lot of actors get a lot of the credit for how amazing things turn out, but the actors are nothing without the crew. The crew is what, you know, really makes things happen, and they're the ones that end up, you can be as talented as you want, but without the crew doing a really good job, you're not gonna look as good as you possibly could. And the crew does a lot more work because you know, you can be acting, but you're only shooting your scenes, and the crew is working through everybody's scenes. So you get breaks as an actor. You get a lot more free time. Not to say you're not, you know, working on your lines or working on stuff, but the crew has to go nonstop the entire set day or set night. In comparison, so I really think that, you know, they deserve a huge shout out. Not just the movies I was on, but movies in general. The crew is what really makes everything run smoothly, come together, and they truly work their asses off from start to finish. And when the actors get cut to go change and get dressed and all that, the crew is still working because they have to tear it down and set it up. So I think honestly, like anyone that really truly loves movies, any genre, but even particularly horror, like it's a cool experience to see how the special effects come together. But I think anyone that really truly is a movie fan should try to be on set at least once, and really just see the level of work that goes in.
Yeah,
it's truly completely humble.
I'd say it's immense. Like, you can have intense jobs. Obviously, building a house, you're working 24/7, but this is building a set in an hour. Do you know what I mean? That's craziness, and what they can do and how quick they do it. Like, even when you look at the likes of the crew for the Super Bowl show, when they're able to put stuff up like that, it's phenomenal in the way that they do it.
And it's also managing problems. Like, you can have a plan. Stuff does not go on as planned on set a lot of the time, and the crew is responsible for figuring out how do we work around this, how do we make this work. Obviously the actors are important, but when something's going on like that, we're just, you know, it's
waiting.
We're just there to you know, be the roles, but everything else, and there's so much more work. I just think it's fascinating alone, but also just incredible the job that and like the level of work that people put into it. You really truly do have to be incredibly passionate about it, no matter what your department is, to kind of survive in it, because it can be on any account completely exhausting. You know, you can have a day shoot and then you're called at night as well, and you just got to figure out when to rest, or you could be shooting several nights in a row and then you're shooting a couple days in a row and your sleep schedule is completely up in the air at that point. Cast and crew as well, so it's honestly truly incredible to see, you know, how much like passion can be such a driving factor in the people that like, you know,
100%.
really
Like
survive.
if you're not in it, if you're not all in, there's no point in being in it. Well, I think we've taken enough of your time here this evening. It's been great to have you on. We really do appreciate you taking time out of your day to come on.
It's been so much fun.
And you're welcome to come back anytime.
Honestly, super fun.
Yeah.
I would be happy to. Horror is the love of my life. Even if it's just talking horror movies, I would love that. Do you mind if I give a shout out for someone?
You fire away.
Go ahead.
So obviously everybody should check out Late Checkout, as well as Mutilator 2. But the lovely producer from Mutilator 2, Jeff, has a project that is about to be streaming as well as available for DVD. It's coming out in less than a month. I cannot off the top of my head say the date, but it's called Terror Trips. Everyone should go ahead and check that out. He's an amazing creator. He's producing something else now. He's definitely someone to keep an eye on. Another movie that I'm really excited to watch get filmed is very reminiscent of like an 80s werewolf movie. It's called Wolf Hollow.
I'm in.
I definitely think people should check that out as well. And that is all. I really appreciate everything. I appreciate y'all talking to me, letting me talk about my work.
Oh, 100%. As I said, we do appreciate you coming on. And we'll wrap it up here now this evening. And hopefully we'll get you on another day where you can actually talk about your favorite movies and whatnot.
I would love that.
And as I says, in the words of the great George A. Romero, stay scared, ladies and gentlemen.